Good morning, sports fans, NFL fans, and NFL fans alike. Welcome again to the worst sports podcast out there. This is Raven Slayer's Hour. There's been a lot of news coming out of the NFL as of recent, with of course the most tumultuous off season this year with free agency pickups and everything alike. So we're finally looking over some information regarding regarding everyone who recently got signed to the Giants. We're gonna going over the NFL draft order, team needs, and who may be falling in these positions. So, without further ado, I do finally have my co-host here available with me. Luckily, he is feeling better, so we'll get right into it. All right. Welcome in. Yes, I did hear you. Hold on. For some reason. Okay, I have to have it up. Okay, that's why. I figured it out, chat. All right. So, there's been a lot of news that recently came out, like mentioned, with recent pickups over the last couple of weeks. Jameis Winston getting signed by the Giants. Giants making a decision to go after Russ as well, going after two of the top quarterbacks in this year's free agency. I'm not sure if they're trying their best to create a quarterback controversy out there with, who they're going to start, QB competition. What are your takes on it, Dad? Sorry, she's not being too happy today, I'm assuming, so. All right, I will be taking over for a minute. I'm almost certain I know what he was trying to get down to, of course, before he got interrupted. But I'm almost certain I know what he was going for. Russell Wilson definitely being an older gentleman, not in the peak performance of his life any further. So, definitely seeing Russ, come into this opportunity for the team. It's going to be it's going to be difficult to decide who you're going to start, Russ, or if you're going to start Jameis. Honestly, I would go for the fun pick. I'd go for Jameis. Jameis is a type of quarterback that just says, "Fuck it, my receiver's down there somewhere. and just chucks the ball, whether it's a complete pass or interception. Either way, Jameis Winston is a fun quarterback to have. Russell Wilson, more than anything, they decided to pick him up. Of course, because they decided not to go after the likes of Aaron Rodgers, since he was being, I don't want. I'm a wait to decide where I want to play, if I want to play. So definitely going after Russell Wilson was more of a strategic move with them. Worst case scenario, if we all know what's going to happen, Jameis doesn't, work out, Jameis doesn't pan out, at least you have a decent backup with Russ. So, that almost certain, I believe that's where he was wanting to go before, young one decided it was time to not have him talk about games anymore. Yeah, roughly mid-year. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, they let him stay. They let him stay the entirety of the year, and then decide, you know what, that's it, you're gone. Best case scenario for him, but yeah, it's definitely down to the nitty gritty out there with the Giants. So, other than signings with the top quarterbacks in this year's free agency, top wide receiver Stephon Diggs finally got paired up with a team that paired up with a decent team. Patriots, they're still in the midst of their rebuild. But Stephon Diggs going to a team with a somewhat decent quarterback definitely is a great thing. With Drake May, he's young, just coming off a rough season where the Patriots didn't perform all that well. But having a receiver like Stephon Diggs out there for the 3 years he will be there, it's definitely going to be a great combination between him and Drake May. Very true. So that transitions into the NFL draft. I know we were talking about, waiting a couple weeks for, free agency to kind of die down after teams finally got the needs that they needed. But that transitions us right into talking about the NFL draft. A lot of team needs, a lot of things that teams ultimately want to look into this year. The big question, Duffy, is that number one pick with Tennessee. So a couple guys are throwing out there. They have needs at quarterback, edge rusher, wide receiver, linebacker, and safety. So the huge question is, do they spring for a quarterback with the number one pick? Do they spring for the edge rusher that everyone keeps pointing them towards, or are they going to be insane and try and look in trading that first overall pick? Definitely. Now the huge question, of course, when it comes to the whole quarterback question with Cam Ward, even though everyone's talking about his maturity and everything, um, one thing I always look at, especially when it comes to quarterback with the highest overall pick, is Cam would if they decide to go Cam Ward, is he going to turn into the the Tim Couch of quarterbacks being drafted, or is he going to more turn into the Cadillac that the Titans are looking for? Now the fun question when it comes to Will Levis, coming into his sophomore season this year, just transitioning. So while he's talking, or talking on the phone there, um, I'll just continue what I was saying. With Will Levis coming into like his sophomore season, um, huge question with Mayo Boy. I'm gonna call him Mayo Boy specifically because of his love for mayo in his coffee. I don't know who in the world likes that. The huge question when it comes to Will Levis is he going to be more like what Arizona had with Josh Rosen? Josh Rosen, as everybody knows, was there for a year. The coach that drafted him, he got fired. And right away, the new coach came in. First thing they did was trade away Josh Rosen. So the huge question when it comes to Will Levis is because of his horrible year last year, is Will Levis going to turn in going to be the type of player we're going to trade him after 1 year? Yeah, there was a recent. Sorry, there was a recent one that I saw. There were conversations with that trade with the number one overall pick. The Titans are demanding at least 3 first-round overall picks. I. It's crazy to think they won't be able to get that. I agree. They won't be able to get that.
If they can
I did
stay in
it
the top
again.
2 or 3,
Son
they
of a
might
gun.
accept slightly
I
less.
did it again. I just realized I did it again. I accidentally had my
You didn't
speaker.
have my voice.
I had the speakers accidentally unmuted there. So sorry, fans. A lot we talked about there. I'm so sorry.
We can back up. We can do it all again.
No, it's all right. So a lot of things we talked about there. I'm a terrible content creator. That's why this is we're the worst sports podcast out there.
If you had the speakers turned off, let's just start from the top.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense, and you can always edit it down if you need to.
yeah, I definitely can do that. So I'll figure out editing and everything like that. So that's on me. I apologize.
Rookie.
So, like we were mentioning, of course, prior, and I know a lot of the topics I did hit on, as well, with the whole Russell Wilson, Winston pickup and the Stefon Diggs pickup. So, definitely let you have your points on that and have the points on the Titans as well.
Okay. I'll buzz through them quick. The Russell Wilson signing is essentially Giants admitting that they weren't going to get Aaron Rodgers or were no longer interested. They have to win now for the GM and the head coach to keep their job. Russell Wilson, while he's not the Russell Wilson that we had in Seattle, he's not a guy that's likely going to take you to a Super Bowl. He does give you a chance to show progress and win games that Jameis Winston probably wasn't going to give you. And Winston essentially signed a backup type deal anyway. They have to win right away. And Russell Wilson, out of the quarterbacks remaining out there in free agency world, is probably their best chance to do that. This does not mean they are not looking to potentially draft a quarterback or move up to take the top overall quarterback. That would be honestly the best thing they could do in this draft. But Russell Wilson at least gives the head coach and the GM a chance to keep their job. Stefon Diggs, touching on him really quickly. 3 years, $69 million going to the Patriots. Everybody knew the Patriots had money to spend. They need playmakers. Stefon Diggs, if he can come back from his injuries, and specifically the one that he suffered halfway through this past year, he is a playmaker. He's not the same playmaker that produced the Minneapolis Miracle, not the same playmaker that led the league in receiving, not the same playmaker that's going to give you 15 touchdowns a year, but he is somebody that is going to improve that offense and improve the weapons that Drake May has got around him. Not a bad signing for the Patriots. I think a little bit overpriced considering the injury history recently, but when you have money to spend, that's what you do. So, and then real quickly, as we just started talking about the NFL draft order and team needs, we were talking about the Tennessee Titans at number one. Quarterback is one of their primary needs, we think. They spent a lot of money in the offseason so far to upgrade that offensive line. My personal opinion, they really should go Abdul Carter, but they will not do that in the first overall pick. They just won't. You cannot skip taking a franchise type quarterback. Cam Ward for me, probably not a top tier franchise guy, not a top 5 in the AFC period, maybe not a top 10 in the NFL. I don't see a Peyton Manning. I don't necessarily see a Ryan Leaf. I see something in the middle. A serviceable starter who's going to win you some games, probably not going to get you to the promised land, but they play in a really bad division, and the quarterback might be just enough to help them to compete. So if they don't trade out of the pick, look for that pick to be Cam Ward, number 1 overall. If they do trade out, proper asking price, in my opinion, 2 back-to-back firsts, a second and a third, and potentially a late round pick swap. If they can get that kind of deal to move out of number 1 and still stay in the top 4, hello Giants, hello Cleveland, pay attention. That would be a great haul for the Tennessee Titans, who have a lot to rebuild.
All right. Well, thank you so much for running through that again. As this rookie here enjoys his realization that you were muted for half the fucking conversation. All right, so moving on, we got the Browns next, number 2 overall pick. Many needs for them: quarterback, offensive line, edge, running back, and safety. More than anything, with the Browns, there's so many different needs that they need. Quarterback definitely is one to look into as a backup quarterback, or even as well starting quarterback. So worst case, Titans go Abdul Carter, and Cam Ward falls to Cleveland. Would you see Cleveland going after Cam Ward, or vice versa? Would they go Abdul Carter if Cam Ward goes first?
I think the top 2 picks off the board are going to be Cam Ward and Abdul Carter. The only question is who goes where. Cleveland spent big money to lock up Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year, best helmet swinger I've ever seen. That said, they need a quarterback. Deshaun Watson, sorry. Deshaun Watson is not the Deshaun Watson that got drafted in Houston. Deshaun Watson is not the same Deshaun Watson who gets massages on the table. Deshaun Watson is not a guy that is going to survive in the NFL much longer. He just restructured his contract one more time. To me, what it screams is that Cleveland is not willing to pay a price to move up one spot. Maybe they were not convinced by Cam Ward prior to his pro day workout. They might still not be convinced after seeing the pro day workout. My personal opinion, Browns should move up one spot. They should draft Cam Ward, and if Cam Ward falls, they're in the catbird seat. If they love Cam Ward, they get to pick him number 2 overall. If they don't love Cam Ward, they can move down one more spot and potentially still get a player that's going to impact them. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, either one of those 2 guys could help this team as well. The reality is, the way I see it, Cam Ward goes 1 and Abdul Carter falls to the Browns. Now they've got a pair of edge rushers that could essentially destroy quarterbacks and offensive lines for a long time. So look for them to go Abdul Carter edge if Cam Ward is off the board. Otherwise, Cam Ward is the likely pick.
Without a doubt. No, yeah, definitely number 1 concern when it comes to Cleveland at this point is Deshaun Watson. Wonderful man who loves to frequent the massage parlors out in Cleveland. He loves his pudding pops. I mean, No, but
Uh-oh.
definitely, I mean, with him finally restructuring his contract, something I was screaming this entire offseason, especially with a guy who doesn't even deserve to sniff that amount that he is getting right now. Just he's definitely not the player that was drafted out in Houston. I was saying it even when he got picked up by Cleveland, getting all the guaranteed money that he got when he initially got signed there. Having that year off of football with all the distractions that he had, football definitely wasn't the number one concern for him. Number one concern was his own image, and unfortunately, even still to this day, his number one concern is his image. So I honestly think with Mr. Cosby, he's not going to be able to stay around for very long out in Cleveland. All right, so moving past the Browns, right after then's the Giants. I know.
This, I, sorry to interrupt, but this for me is where the draft really starts because the top two picks outside of who's going to be making them, the top two picks for me are pretty much cemented in stone. If New York stands pat at number 3 and the top two picks are the Titans and the Browns, this is where it gets interesting. Um, talking about their needs, we've talked a little bit about, the fact they still potentially need a quarterback for the future. Russell Wilson's on a short 1-year deal. Jameis Winston, short 2-year deal. They recognize that they do not have a long-term solution right now. That said, let's talk about their other needs. They have needs at offensive line. They have needs all over the defense. What stands out for me is their need at cornerback. You just spent money to give yourselves a quarterback who can potentially give you some wins and some progress to save your job. What if you could fill two needs with one stone? Travis Hunter. I'll have to plug it in. You'll have to wait just a minute, please. 1 minute. Let me finish what I was saying, then I'll come help you. Travis Hunter, for me, this is an ideal pick for the New York Giants if they stand pat at number 3. You get a guy who can step in as a starting cornerback in the NFL and compete with some of the top cornerbacks today. On top of that, you get another weapon at wide receiver. Everyone say hi to my daughter who has to be involved. You get another weapon at wide receiver for Russell Wilson. And if they're going to win ball games, make no mistake, it is not going to be by running the ball. It's going to be by throwing the ball with Russell Wilson and having an offensive line that perhaps they draft behind this pick. You give them some weapons to try and compete. Travis Hunter fills a void on defense. Travis Hunter can also play on offense. I know it's the NFL, it's not college football, and it's really hard to play two ways. But if you can get a guy who can give you weapons on both sides of the ball and give you a better chance to win today, Travis Hunter, to me, is the most sensible pick of all of them. They did not sign 2 quarterbacks this year because they were sold on Shedeur Sanders as a future quarterback for them over the next few years. If you're going to win today, the pick is Travis Hunter. Stepping away for just a moment while I get her situated.
Alrighty. Well, I definitely have to agree with him while he is working on getting her situated. Travis Hunter definitely would be a pick I would be looking into if I were the Giants. You finally got yourself some solidification on that offense with a brand new quarterback after getting rid of Danny Dimes this offseason. Everybody knew he wasn't the answer. Happy to see him gone. But definitely looking at that defense, Travis Hunter definitely would be a great addition out there for the Giants. They need solidification at corner, one of the major needs they need right now. And even at that point, the additional question with everything there is, will he play both sides of the ball? Now, I know he just stepped away too. I'm going to have to step away momentarily. I have a phone call real brief. I will be right back, everybody.
Sorry about that. Did we lose Raven? Raven.
Sorry, both of us got both of us got distracted there. My apologies. But anyway,
Okay.
to your point, I definitely agree with you. Travis Hunter definitely is a guy you want to look into this. Look into for the Giants. The fun thing to see, of course, is are they going to allow him to play both sides of the ball with both receiver and corner as he's wanting to do in the NFL?
I think they have to. If and again, their hand is forced a little bit with the win now situation that they're in. If they don't win today, if they don't win now, they're out of a job. And that fact I think drives the Travis Hunter pick even more.
I think I kind of saw her coming in there with the dog and the tutu or something. Oh no, she was holding the dog.
He's holding the dog. She
Uh,
just had to show him to everyone. There you go. You got your chance to say hi. Say hi. All right, there you go. You got your chance. Now it's time to go play.
All right, so as he's situating her, I think it's good transition over into the number 4 overall pick with the Patriots. A whole lot of needs for them right now. With after just getting Stephon, they took one of their needs off the board. Uh, Biggest needs right now being on that offensive line. Needing a new running back, a new tight end, some defensive needs with safety and defensive line. Several different ways they could go here. I know I'm insane for even thinking about it, even talking about it. Austin Genty being that number 1 overall running back prospect could be something the Patriots look into as a potential. But again, several different needs they need. There's a lot of other decent safeties and defensive line prospects this year. But it would be fun to see Austin Genty going number 4.
Um, while it might be fun, I think the more realistic pick here, and again, this is all relative. It depends on how this draft falls. If Travis Hunter falls to them at 4, Travis Hunter is most likely their pick. And then it gets fun to see whether they pick him to be a wide receiver or they pick him to be a corner. They really have needs on either side. So I like him as a wide receiver to partner with Stephon Diggs. But if he is gone at 3, I like Mason Graham from Michigan, the defensive tackle. Um, they have voids to fill all over that defense. And spending the pick anywhere other than defense, if this is how the board falls up to this point, Mason Graham is probably their pick. I can't ever justify picking a running back in the top 15 even, unless it is a truly generational talent. Ask Atlanta how picking a running back in the top 10 goes. Ask Detroit how picking a running back at 12 overall goes. Jahmyr Gibbs is a nice guy that they picked at number 12 a couple years ago. I'm not convinced that he's done enough to warrant a top 15 pick overall. I I really don't think that any running back should go in the top 15 or 16 overall just because of the nature of the NFL today, but we'll see where he falls. For me, it's either going to be Travis Hunter if he falls to 4 or Mason Graham going to the Patriots.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. A lot of defensive needs for them too. As well, needs on that offensive line if you want to keep Drake May healthy for the long run in the season. So definitely a lot of needs that they need all around. But it'll definitely be interesting to see where everything falls, especially in the nature of the actual draft on after picks number 1 and 2. Where the hell is everybody else going? Now transitioning in, I know as well. Let's see here. After them, it's 5. So Jags, Jacksonville. A lot of needs that they need. Main ones, of course, being on that defensive line. Some needs at corner safety. Some needs on that offensive line and wide receiver. A lot of questions, especially as well with the longevity of Lawrence. If they keep him there for the if they keep him there as their number one guy, their number one quarterback, or if after a couple, after this year, if they wait until next and hopefully tank for Arch. A lot of questions, but yeah, a lot of needs that they need right now.
Yeah, the Jags have got holes too. I mean, and that's the nature of drafting at the top of the draft. It's because you weren't good last year, and you do have holes. For the Jags, defensive line probably. I think they need a run stopper, and offensive line is a need as well. Trevor Lawrence is the most inexplicable. Like, it blows my mind that there is this love fest that still goes on with the guy. He hasn't won. He just not at the NFL level. He was a great college quarterback, but at the NFL level, he hasn't done anything to warrant what he's getting paid or the job security he seems to have. I don't understand it. But this is not a quarterback deep draft. You're not going to see them spend a pick on a quarterback, I don't think. Unless Shedeur Sanders slides to 5 and they're somehow just sold on the guy. For me, the more likely scenario, considering the money they've invested into Trevor Lawrence, I see them probably going offensive line here. Or if Travis Hunter slides, maybe we see him go here. The two possibilities for me on offensive line, Armand Membo from Missouri, he would make a lot of sense. Or if they decide to go receiver, Tataria McMillan from Arizona. Those are probably the top two playmakers, top two fits for me. And if they're going for a playmaker, if Travis Hunter's already off the board, why not take the second best receiver? We've seen the shift that's going on in the NFL right now. Playmakers are everything, especially as we talk about receivers. If you can get the top or the second best wide receiver and give Trevor Lawrence another weapon, Lord knows he needs them, because I don't see it going any other way for them.
No, definitely. So many different things to question as far as the whole Travis or the whole Lawrence love. More than anything, I think it's the hair. It's most likely what it is, but definitely the hair. That's probably why a lot of people love him. He definitely has some intangibles too, as far as player himself, but he's not the answer for the long run for them. Definitely not their franchise quarterback. But definitely so many different holes that they could fill. But definitely the secondary receiver, or the second receiver that could be taken off the board here, being the guy from Arizona. Great player last year. Great. I mean, honestly, I could see him becoming the next, of course. Me being a Bengals fan, the next E. Higgins, but but seriously, he very well could. If he goes there, he could be the number one option there out in Jacksonville.
Yep, I agree.
So moving forward, Viva
Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas.
Now Raiders. Let's talk about them for a minute. They play in probably the toughest division in the NFL. They have some needs that start at running back. Running back, wide receiver, cornerback, offensive line, you name it. There are needs. The most interesting part for them is, are they in love with Geno Smith? Are they in love with Geno Smith, or are they looking to improve at quarterback as well? So I'll let you start with what you think, and I'll follow up behind.
Well, definitely, I think more than anything, they got Geno Smith specifically because they had the need a quarterback. I wouldn't have wanted to trot out what's his name, the other wonderful hair guy, Minshew. I don't want to trot out Minshew. I wouldn't want to trot out Minshew for another year. He was terrible last year. He would be terrible again this year, regardless of whatever moves that they made in the off season. He would have been terrible to have. But with Geno, I definitely saw that. From what I personally saw, it was more of a, hey, we need a guy that can come in to be that starter. Geno Smith, with what he did in Seattle, coming into sorry, almost called them Oakland once again, but coming into Las Vegas, coming in there, he's going to be their number one guy for a couple more years before he decides to hang him up. But definitely, he could be their new franchise quarterback moving forward after the terrible performances last year at quarterback. And I mean, I know again you said top running backs nature of the game now. Um, I don't know. There's a lot of needs for them right now, especially on that defense as well. That offensive line, they need additions to the offensive line to keep their new franchise quarterback healthy. But at the same time, if you got a running back, you got several different running backs available this year. Not just to mention Ashton Genty, but as well out of Arizona State. Scapbo, go Devils.
Look, we all love Scapbo. He will not be the first running back off the board. He's at best a third round pick. So settle down, Turbo.
No, but definitely a very possible running back goes here. Ashton Genty
Yep.
is a definite number one. Definite guy to look into. It being a first round pick, he's a generational talent coming out of Boise State. So he could go running back here.
So let's talk a little bit about it. Las Vegas spent a third round pick to bring Geno Smith over. In particular, Pete Carroll being so familiar with Geno Smith, and Geno Smith being familiar with Pete Carroll and the system he loves to run. And don't forget, these guys just signed Chip Kelly to be their offensive coordinator. Uh, Chip Kelly's offenses are built around throwing the football. If they pick a running back in this slot, it would be a bit of a shock. They didn't spend a third round pick. One of the great quotes that I saw in one of the mock drafts, they didn't spend a third round pick to hand the ball off 35 times a game. They spent the pick because they intend to throw the ball with Geno Smith and spread the ball around. Best case scenario for them is one of the top two receivers probably slides. Yeah, their wide receiver room is barren. But if they spend a running back or a pick on a running back, do not be surprised if instead of Ashton Genty, we go to Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. The guy can catch the ball, the guy can run the ball, and in a Chip Kelly type offense, that's what you're going to be looking for. We don't see a lot of three down backs anymore. Ashton Genty is probably the closest to a three down back, but Hampton has moved up the boards like crazy. This would not be a shock if they go that route. That said,
Definitely.
I think Pittsburgh would probably be, or I'm sorry, not Pittsburgh. Las Vegas would probably be better off spending the pick to get some protection for Geno Smith. My personal opinion, um, or spend on that defense because you play in a division where you've got three great offenses. That's 6 games a year. Your defense better be ready to hold up. Uh,
Definitely.
if one of the top two receivers slide, look for that to be the pick. Otherwise, don't be shocked if pick is running back, but it's not Ashton Genty.
Definitely. No, yeah. I think more than anything, of course, to your point with the whole Chip Kelly offense, majorly being built around that, built around the passing game. Um, say McMillan does go and fall to Jacksonville. We may see a secondary the second receiver on that board coming off at number 6 as well, with Matthew Golden out of Texas. Very well could be a great could be a great plug and play guy out in Vegas. As far as him being the number 1 option there, who knows? But I mean, maybe seeing a receiver going number 6. Very well could be a could be a way to see, but definitely Omari and Hampton, him being more of a receiving back as well, definitely would be a great thing to see too. So
All right, let's move on. New York Jets time.
Yep, the former Aaron Rodgers that led Jets, now led by their young star in Justin Fields. Now, of course, I say star tentatively because who knows, but very many needs with the offensive line itself. Aaron Rodgers was killed last year because of that rocky offensive line. They just lost their lead receiver as well. Another hole at the tight end position with safety and D line as well having concerns as well. I think more than anything, their defense is somewhat more solidified this year. So maybe going after a skill position or even an offensive lineman definitely would be a great thing to see. Maybe Membo out of Missouri, or even Kelvin Banks Jr. as well.
Yeah, and for me, this is where mock drafts are so much fun because we can project 100 different ways, and really when we start getting to this point, the 5s, the 6, the 7, this is really where it comes down to who doesn't get picked. The Jets, I think, will probably take the best available that fills a need. If Membo has not gone to this point, and it's very possible he may go 5 or 6 for me. If he has not gone by this point, Armand Membo is probably the best fit overall for them. Unless one of those top guys happens to slide. They've got a great receiver in Garrett Wilson. It'd be great to see a second receiver there like McMillan out of Arizona. For me, the top 2 receivers off the board are going to be Travis Hunter and McMillan. Anyone else ahead of those 2 would be a shock, in my opinion, unless something happens between now and the draft that just completely shakes up the board. If it is not Membo, look for them to go defense, honestly. I don't think, if it's not Membo and one of those guys doesn't slide, look for them to go defense. They need help on defense. Their defense is good, but Justin Fields is not going to win games all by himself. They don't play in a division with a whole lot of talent anymore. We're talking about Miami. We're talking about New England. We're talking about the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills are going to win this division going away. There's no question about it. You're really competing to be second best in this division and maybe squeak out a playoff spot. You win games with defense when you don't have enough talent on offense to put up the points. I don't see them, regardless of who they pick in the first round, having that talent. So spending on defense to try and slow down the rest of your division, and let's be honest, they get to play potentially the third best team out of every other division. Look for them to go defense if they don't get to go Armand Membo.
Now, something else that may be able to help them too, because I was looking at the prospects as well on that defensive line. There's a great defensive tackle coming out of Michigan, Mason Graham. He's honestly projected to go right around the top 10. So very well as well, they may be looking at defensive tackle. One of their many holes from last year as well. Helps out more with the run stopping. They got killed on the run, even as well killed on killed in the passing game. Sauce Gardner wasn't as great as he was his rookie year. He went through his sophomore slump this past year, but definitely having a run stopper might be able to help him out too there.
Yeah, and again, this will come down to who slides, who goes in front of them, who maybe trades up in front of them. But beyond the top 5 or 6, I don't see a clear playmaker for the Jets. So for me, if none of these playmakers we've talked about slides, offensive line is probably the best way to build right now.
Exactly. Now, moving on to a team that that was terrible last year. The good old Carolina Panthers. Good old Carolina. So many different needs. Felt terrible for who was their quarterback last year, majority of the year. Dalton, I know, was a majority quarterback out there. But now he's a free agent now. He's no longer on the team. You're putting your trust back into, oh God, what is his name? Forget his name. Bryce Young. You're putting your trust back in Bryce. The fun things to think about with the Panthers, especially, that defense needs upgrades as much as they can, especially after J.C. Horn getting him re-signed to that monstrous contract. You got needs at corner, needs at safety, needs at the edge rusher position. Again, other position needs on that defensive line, and as well needs at the wide receiver position. So several different ways, but definitely I see Panthers going defense this time around. Definitely looking at more of an edge rusher. I really like Georgia's Mykel Williams falling here.
That's an interesting pick. I've seen quite a few mock drafts. I hadn't seen him going this high up. Still some time between now and the draft for people to move up, people to move down. A couple of the popular names I've seen, Jalon Walker from Georgia, or Jahade Brown, the cornerback out of Texas. Either one of these guys would be good fits for this defense. IX, go play. Either one of these guys would be good fits for this defense. Okay, I'll be right there. Either one of these guys are good fits. Bryce Young showed some strides toward the end of last year that he was improving, and I think he'll get one more go around to prove whether or not he was worth that first overall pick. I hear you. I'll be right there. For me, any pick that they can make on the defense to improve that defense is the right pick. I'm going to be stepping away for a moment to get this young lady fed. I'll be back in probably when we get to 10 or 11. I'll let Raven talk about the Saints.
All right, wonderful. So, yeah, definitely a lot of very good points made about the Panthers. I definitely have to agree with them more than anything. Any pickups that the Panthers can make on defense will be a huge, tremendous help. So moving forward with the Saints. Again, a lot of needs on defense, a lot of needs on offense. Different viewpoints coming in there as well. They need a new I honestly believe they need a new signal caller at quarterback. Not a whole lot of opportunity, not a whole lot of great players out there at quarterback right now this year. Of course, as everybody knows, the best ones, of course, right now being the best one being Cam Ward as far as a maturity standpoint. With the Saints, I mean, the concerns that they had at quarterback were tremendous. Mike, I know he's probably going to yell at me for it, but Shadir Sanders, him falling to number 9 very well could be a viable thing. The Saints have been from what I understand, they've been very, very much so looking at Shedeur Sanders, to fall at number 9. Very much so looking into him as a prospect. Shedeur Sanders definitely is not, the best answer when it comes to quarterback this year for any team who's looking for a franchise player. He very much so is more of a placeholder quarterback. So there's several different ways things could go with this pick. But I definitely favorite Shedeur Sanders falling number 9. So, other than the Saints, other than Shedeur Sanders with the Saints, it very well could be offensive line upgrades, upgrade at the receiver position, especially after getting rid of Michael Thomas as well, with trying to get more weapons other than Olave. Olave is injury prone as hell. You very well could look at wide receiver, whether it be looking at another free agent wide receiver that could step in to a number 2 role, or looking into a wide receiver in the draft this year too. So many different ways it could go. More than anything, I definitely see it more being Shedeur Sanders. Especially just after them looking at him through the entire draft process with his upcoming private private workout with them after Colorado's pro day. So moving past the Saints, when the Saints will go marching into that number 9 pick. Moving into the number 10 pick with Chicago. Yes, I said Chicago, not Chicago. Chicago with the Bears.
That's not very nice. Not very nice, though.
So with the Bears.
Yeah, I can go over some of their needs. I still don't understand what they expect to get out of Caleb Williams without protecting him. Offensive line is probably one of their big needs. And ever since losing David Montgomery to the Lions, running back has emerged as a pretty big need as well. I'm super curious to watch what happens in Chicago on draft day, because this is a team that's starting to build talent, that's starting to show that they have some talent. I don't know if that equates to wins in the second toughest division, in my opinion, in the NFL right now. Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, like, yikes. Do you want to compete in that division right now? I sure don't.
Definitely not.
But when you have to, you either better find ways to stop some really scary offenses, or B, you better find a way to score points to run with them. Offensive line, protecting Caleb Williams, probably a pretty important thing. But this could be where I think we could see a running back reach. And by reach, I know that's relative. It's hard to say any pick at number 10 is a reach if it's the best available on the board. But, this is the range we saw Bijan Robinson get drafted, Jahmyr Gibbs get drafted. And it is important to have a back that can take some of the pressure off. Ashton Jeanty might be a good fit right here. Ben Johnson, coming over from Detroit, the new head coach in Chicago, might really be looking for this type of weapon. This might be the best fit for Ashton Jeanty, coming into an offense where he's not going to have to be the guy 35, 40 times a game. And giving them a running option to make defenses play a little more straight up would be a really good fit. If Ashton Jeanty goes in the top 10, this is the most likely spot for me.
Now, of course, that begs the question on if if the Raiders decide to go Ashton Jeanty or not. if they decide to go Ashton Genty, which who knows, as well another favorable running back I could see is that guy out of Ohio State, Travion Henderson. That'd be a great guy to look into as far as running back, as far as a running back prospect here too.
He's not a bad prospect, but if Ashton Genty somehow goes to the Raiders and and Chicago is sold on the fact they need a running back, Omarion Hampton is probably on the board at number 10. And again, another good back that can take some of the pressure off of Caleb Williams and force defenses to play a little more straight up.
Exactly. All right, so moving forward to the Pukes. Good old Cal Pukes. As everybody knows on this channel.
Whoa, sir. Whoa. Number 11 is not the Cal Pukes.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. I skipped right past them. The 49ers are so irrelevant at this point that I just had to skip right past them. So right over to the 49ers, the guys who were, very much so at a point of just getting rid of everything and anything that moves right now, just so they can get as much money as they can for their future quarterback. Their new God, what's his name? Their new Steve Young. Very many
Brock Purdy.
Good old Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, now Mr. Relevant. So, 49ers. The
needs are everywhere.
Exactly. I mean, moving past their running back, their serviceable backup running back, after McCaffrey went down this year. Looks at offensive line needs, defense needs, so many different needs right now.
Yeah, there's no one need that you can highlight. They essentially got murdered by free agency, and they're going to get a lot of compensatory picks as a result of it. But what it really means is that they have holes everywhere. So for the San Francisco 49ers, it's really going to come down to best available at number 11 overall that fills one of the 17 voids on that team. John Lynch has done a remarkable job drafting talent. There is not going to be a wrong pick for San Francisco unless they somehow gamble on a quarterback. That's not going to happen. You're not going to spend the money on Brock Purdy to gamble on a quarterback in the draft. Whatever best available player is there, that's who I expect them to spend on. Most likely, I would expect this pick to go defense. And I would not be surprised to see the pick fill either a linebacker void in a class without a lot of great linebacker talent, not top 10 talent anyway, or go along that defensive backfield. Look for the pick to be somewhere in that back 6 or 7 on defense. Anything else would maybe be a bit of a shock unless one of the top receivers slides.
Definitely. Especially with this pick with the Niners. I mean, the amount of needs that they have on defense is insane right now. If we're talking about top 6 for them, there's a great safety to look into, Nick Emenwari, as well as a couple of other corners as well to look into, like Jahdae Barron from Texas as well. A lot of guys you can look into, and even as well, to your point, the linebacker position needs not very many available that are even considered like top 15. They could very well go after the best available linebacker in Jihad Campbell. They very well could look there, but several different ways they could look, especially with the amount of holes that they have right now.
Oh, sorry, I got a text I had to address. Are we on the Pukes yet, or are we still talking about those Niners?
We are now moving on to the Pukes.
Okay. Let me make this simple. Dallas Cowpukes are going to spend a pick on a player that either A, makes all the sense in the world, or B, you shake your head and you go, are you kidding me? That's all they do every time. There are times that they truly hit it out of the park. And I hate saying that, like, oh, I don't know, Mr. Diggs. There are other times where they just completely baffle you. I don't know, let's say Ezekiel Elliott, anyone? The Pukes have needs if they're going to compete with Philly and now Washington to make the playoffs in that division. They need a wide receiver. They need a wide receiver in the worst way. They need a wide receiver so badly that I would argue they should trade up to take the top available receiver in this draft. And to be fair, they're probably going to have to trade up into the 5, 6, 7 range if they're going to get that. If they don't, I am rooting for them to do the thing that will make my best friend burn his jerseys and switch allegiances and start wearing orange with me. I would love to see them take Ashton Jeanty. They need a running back, but with the history they have spending those high picks on running backs, it would truly be entertaining just to watch him break a TV. I don't see them going anywhere other than offensive skill position. If one of the top 2 running backs or one of the top 2 receivers is potentially able to fit there, they should. And in my opinion, they should trade up to get to Travis Hunter if they can. That's my take.
Very much so. We could, when it comes to Dallas drafting, I immediately think back to South Park. Are we going to get to Jerry Jones that his eyes are straightforward? He's able to see everything that he needs, or are we going to get the bug-eyed Jerry Jones where his eyes go out to the side and just goes, "We need a quarterback." It would be hilarious to see. Hilarious, of course. I agree with you seeing Mike break a TV. It'd be funny as hell if Jerry Jones reaches and goes Quinn Ewers. That'd be fucking hilarious.
He's not going to go Quinn Ewers in the first round. It wouldn't be surprising to see him go Quinn Ewers in the second or third round just because he thinks it'll sell tickets. There's nothing like a nice quarterback controversy to sell tickets. He's a master of that third round quarterback draft pick that everybody is chomping to see take over for the existing quarterback. For me, if they spend it anywhere other than offensive playmaker, they've made a mistake.
Definitely agree. So moving past the Pukes, we got the Dolphins at number 13, the good old Dolphins. Very many needs, defense, offense alike. Definitely more on the defensive side of the ball more than anything right now. So, and definitely very many ways they could go. Very many ways they could go here, especially with that secondary they currently have.
I think the bigger interesting story is their offensive line and what they do there. Terran Armstead's contract situation is going to dictate a lot of this, whether or not they can renegotiate with him and get a contract that's going to be more team friendly. I would not be surprised to see them spend a pick on the offensive line to protect concussion Tagliavola. If they're gonna win games, it's gonna be because Tua is in the game. So Will Campbell, probably the second best offensive line option in this draft.
Best, by the way. Right behind Kellen
Banks. Second best offensive lineman in this draft for me would probably be Will Campbell. Offensive line is probably where they should spend their first round pick every single year that Tua is still under center. Or, in the shotgun, trying to stay away from all the guys coming to kill him. If they're going to win games with Tua at quarterback, it's going to be because they spend on that offensive line. That defense isn't terrible. It's again, they play in a terrible division where 4 to 5 wins a year are not out of the question if you can keep your quarterback upright.
Exactly. No, yeah, definitely with especially with Tua turned the ball over. Definitely it's number one priority for them to keep him upright. So definitely, very many ways it could go here. But definitely offensive line with Will Campbell is the most sensible pick to make with them to keep their franchise quarterback healthy. All right, another fun one to talk about is the Colts. Very many needs, especially after getting their wonderful new quarterback. Or sorry, not their new quarterback. Them having the huge question with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson. Anyway, very many needs, especially with their number one need being at tight end. Me personally, when I was looking at it, I saw that kid from Penn State, Tyler Warren. Definitely would be an interesting guy to see fall here at number 14, if not lower. But definitely him going 14 could be a sensible idea.
Yep. Tight end is probably their biggest need. Anthony Richardson needs a guy that can help to move the chains. Their their offense is decent if Jonathan Taylor is healthy. Jonathan Taylor is a guy that got used up very quickly in the first couple seasons in the NFL, got injured. We all know about that. And if Jonathan Taylor can get a good blocking tight end to help them out, to help that offensive line open some holes, and to help on the short passes when he doesn't have to take the hits, I think it's a good move. Colston Loveland is another tight end out of Michigan that would make some sense. The guy can catch the ball, but he can also block really well. So tight end is probably the most prevalent spot unless a top offensive lineman slides. I'm really interested to see whether or not the Colts spend a second or third rounder on a quarterback option as well to battle with Anthony Richardson, or if they somehow convince Aaron Rodgers to take a shot there. So
That could be
we'll see.
insane to even think about. Aaron Rodgers going to the Colts. That'd be a fun one to even think about, let alone talk about. Because I mean, knowing Pittsburgh and having their needs at quarterback too. Of course, I'm not trying to fight for Pittsburgh. I would absolutely be elated to see Mason Rudolph running out of the tunnel every single year, being that number one quarterback option out there. But Aaron Rodgers, if he goes to Pittsburgh, I mean, it's two different evils you have out there. But anyway, moving past the Colts, because I know it's very many things to think about with them, with Anthony Richardson not being the best option there. Falcons moving forward to them with very many needs on that defensive line. Their defense in general, with a new need for edge, some defensive tackle would be nice out there. And then, of course, their secondary being huge, having their huge holes that they have.
Yeah, and I think in Atlanta, defense is probably the most likely spot we see him spend a first rounder. And in that sense, I think it's going to come down to who's the best available playmaker, somebody that can start right away for that defense. Linebacker, we really haven't talked much about up to this point. If you could get the best available playmaker at linebacker to improve that defense, that might not be a bad fit. And we're not necessarily talking edge rusher, because edge rushers are at such a premium, they're going to go high. If you can find a guy that can roam around the center of that defense, make plays, make tackles, the Cardinals are notorious for taking shots on guys that have all this potential. Under Steve Keim, we saw guys like Hassan Reddick um, Isaiah Simmons. Those are guys that they took a flyer on because they needed that opportunity. It'll be interesting to see who slides and who's available. But if they can get the best available linebacker at this spot, I've seen the name Jahad Campbell be mentioned out of Alabama, Mike Green out of Marshall. You know, somebody that can potentially fill the center of that defense for them and make some plays there. That makes a lot of sense. Anywhere they go on defense is potentially going to be an upgrade for them. So we'll see what they can land.
Exactly. No, very many things I agree with you there, especially with the Falcons, the amount of needs they need. Definitely, that the safety prospect. God, what's his name? I know you just mentioned him, of course, but that safety prospect, Nick Eamon as well. He could be another guy to look into as far as the Falcons after losing Justin Simmons this offseason. But who knows? Very many things they could look into. Or as well, they could be another team that may look into a trade too. Very many things. Very many things to even think about. All right, on to the Birds, the
On to
Cardinals.
the Arizona Cardinals.
So,
Sorry, that was offensive. For anyone who was offended by that, I just want to say sorry.
those on YouTube, my apologies for him. he he unfortunately doesn't have the best filter. Our apologies. Anywho, on to the Cardinals. Very many needs, especially on that defense. Huge needs on
Defense, defense,
defense.
defense.
Mm-hmm. Huge needs
Yep.
on their defense and as well, wide receiver. I mean, you got
Mhm.
your number one. You got your number one out there with Marvin Harrison Jr. You don't have a really viable number two option out there.
I am. I really was surprised to see the slow development of Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. They've got Greg Dortch. Um, they've got playmakers. James Conner in the backfield. He's your number one. You got Kyler Murray. You've got some weapons. You'd like to see more, but that defense just could not generate pass rush. Now they made some moves. They signed Josh Sweat. I thought that was a great signing, stealing him away from the Eagles. But they've got to make some upgrades all over that defense if they're gonna win games. If they're not able to spend on a top receiver, somebody that is going to come in and make a difference immediately, man, I'd love to see McMillan slide uh, from Arizona to Arizona. I would love to see that happen. I don't see it at number 16 for them. So if they can't find a way to improve outside at the skill positions on offense, defense makes a lot of sense. And the best available edge rusher at this point might be Mike Green out of Marshall, depending on how the rest of the draft falls. Um, I like their secondary. I really do. I know they still have needs and they still need some playmakers out there, but overall, I liked how that secondary came around toward the end. I feel like the bigger holes are at trying to generate some pass rush for him. So he might be a great pick if he's available, but definitely look for the Cardinals to spend on defense day one if they can't fill a superstar playmaker on offense.
Definitely. All right. Yeah. I mean, definitely with the Cardinals. I mean, super slow development. Super slow development with their their main catch passer. Um, I mean, very well
Pass
too. I
catcher.
mean, very many different guys you can look at as far as wide receiver. It'd be fun to see a guy like Jaden Higgins fall into the Cardinals too. With the I mean, with the need when it comes to a secondary guy to look into as far as a receiver, he could be a fun guy to look into as well.
I
Now, So
Yeah, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals and their biggest need, salary cap space.
yeah, I know the very many pickups we had on my birthday with Uno and Cinco, with both of them getting their big contracts. But um, there is still, of course, some available cap. So I mean, there's some spending still that we can do on that defense,
Not
especially
much.
especially with who I would love to see go to Cincinnati, an additional edge rusher or even further secondary help. Um, the secondary last year was atrocious, atrocious. So I definitely see them going for more corner help. Will Johnson out of Michigan definitely is a guy that could be looked into, or even who is he? The safety out of the other safety out of Georgia, Malachi Starks. Very well could be multiple guys that could go here, but as well there are other questions when it comes to Trey Hendrickson and his want and desire to stay here. I know I mentioned him prior, Michael Williams, and even James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Other guys that we could look into at edge rusher to help out with the defense entirely.
Yeah. So one of my favorite memes that I've seen so far in this fun off season, it said it showed the Bengals walking off the field losers 97-94. And said the Bengals every game this year. Uh, Defense has got to be their spend here. When you spend as much money on offense as they have spent, you're going to have to hit in the draft on defense. They we all know their defensive struggles all year last year. We all know that Trey Hendrickson has a trade request out there. He wants to be traded now, as opposed to the likelihood of being tagged come next year. Uh, they've got to find a way to fill those voids. Along with the names that you've mentioned, Nick Emenwari, the safety out of South Carolina, potentially the first safety off the board. He'd be a good fit. Um, Anything other than defense at this pick would blow my mind. If they go offense anywhere, maybe it's offensive line because they're trying to protect Joe Burrow. Maybe they're trying to open up holes for that running game in Chase Brown. Uh, I just don't get it. Defense has got to be the pick, and it's got to be the best available that slides to them at number 17.
Yeah, I think more than anything too, if I see anything other than defense going with our number one overall pick, this hat I'm wearing right now is getting burned. That's all I know. That's all I. That's
You got
all I know.
you look great in orange. I'm just saying, you look great in orange. We can get it's an easy transition. I got plenty of spare jerseys for you.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Anywho, moving on from the orange, might as well switch over to the blue because blue is a very, very wonderful color when it comes to bruises. The Seattle Seahawks.
How many question marks?
Very many.
Um, Sam Darnold was a great signing. I don't know that he'll replicate what he did in Minnesota, but if you're going to lose your starting quarterback, you want to probably be signing the best available free agent in the class, and that was Sam Darnold. They signed him to a pretty friendly deal. I'm not going to lie, getting him for what they got him for, a fraction of what the top starting quarterbacks are making. Not a bad move. They already have Cooper Kupp coming in, replacing DK Metcalf. They're going to need more playmakers, unless they somehow bring Tyler Lockett back on a 1-year deal because he can help to move the ball. Jackson Smith-Njigba is really, really nice. He's a good compliment. I would love to see them get one more playmaker on offense at this point. Uh, you mentioned Matthew Golden earlier. I think this is probably a more likely destination, or at least draft position for Matthew Golden. They definitely could use another wide receiver. Offensive line, also, let's protect Sam Darnold. We all saw what happened to Darnold when he lost his protection toward the end of the year. So, best available offensive line, best available wide receiver, probably two of the top things that they could fill. They also have holes on defense at cornerback, at safety, but not as big a concern for me as making sure that Sam Darnold stays upright and can get the ball to some playmakers.
No, I definitely agree with you. More offensive line help definitely would be more of a sensible idea for Seattle more than anything. But definitely as well. I mean, sure you got Cooper Kupp as your number one guy out there as far as receiver. But the huge question mark, of course, with with him is his health. If he can stay healthy all year, you don't have to worry about wide receiver. If you're very tentative on his health, maybe having a secondary receiver that you can go and say, all right, rookie, it's your time to shine. There you go. Very many questions. Keeping him up, Darnold upright, definitely could be something to look into. Maybe look later on in the draft, but definitely receiver could be something they could go here too. All right, so on to the Bucks defense. A lot of teams are in need of defense this year, especially the Buccaneers. After everything they've lost this year, with linebacker, corner, edge, and safety being their number one things to look at as far as defense, very many ways they could go.
Yeah, and don't forget that the Bucks did a good job of keeping their offense together during free agency. They were able to re-sign Chris Godwin, able to re-sign their guard Bredston. Their defense is going to have to keep them in the game. Baker Mayfield, I think, played out of his mind this past year. I would be shocked to see him replicate last year. We'll have to see. Bucks to win games this year, it's gonna require some upgrades on defense. Anywhere that they can go across that defense is probably going to help. Their defensive backfield is not full of playmakers. I like the name Malaki Starks from Georgia. I think he could be a potential pick here. But again, when we start talking about mock drafting, this is really all about, did anyone slide? Did somebody sneak through all the way down to this point? And if they did, do they fit first? And if they didn't, who's the best available and who do you see the most potential in? The Buccaneers have had some success drafting defense. Antonio Winfield Jr., I think, is a great playmaker in the defensive backfield. They just need something else to pair with him. So look for them to go defense, best available, that fits their needs.
Without a doubt. Yeah, definitely looking into that, investing in that defense very well could be something. Will be something they need to look into, especially with their linebackers being very very lackluster currently as of now. So definitely going to be fun to see very many different things, very different things going on throughout the draft, especially who slides, who lands where. It'll be fun to see, especially up to this point. Now on to the the Broncos.
Hey, that's not nice. Not nice. Remember, you're going to be wearing this color orange after your bungles piss you off this year. So
no, it'll be fine. They won't piss me off this year. I will bleed the proper orange and black, not the orange and blue. Don't you worry. Anywho, the Broncos.
Yes, let's talk about my Broncos. Manny's in there somewhere. Maybe he's under here. Okay. Denver Broncos. They spent a lot of money on defense, a defense that was already among the best in the NFL. They went out and got themselves a couple more playmakers and Dre Greenlaw and safety Hufanga from San Fran. They stole some talent from San Francisco and made that defense even better. They also signed Evan Ingram in this offseason at tight end. It gave them another playmaker on offense. Two potential holes that I see for the Broncos. Number one at running back. They just let their star running back, and I say star, excuse me, I say star loosely when I talk about Javonte Williams. They let their top running back go. They can always use playmakers to help support Bo Nix as he continues to develop. They spent on the offensive line a little bit. I think the two biggest holes for them are definitely going to be at running back or at wide receiver. And when I say holes, not necessarily big holes, because Sean Payton's offenses don't require a superstar wide receiver, but it always helps to have more playmakers.
No, I
The
definitely
Broncos,
see. I definitely see the
hold on.
Broncos. Sorry, go ahead. It's your team. I'll let you talk
That's all
about
right.
your team.
It's my baby. It's my baby. A lot of mock drafts have them drafting the best available running back between Ashton Genty here at number 20 if he slides, or McMillan, not McMillan, I'm sorry, Hampton if he slides. Good job, you found them. Go play. Good job. They either have them taking one of these top two running backs at this pick, or taking another wide receiver weapon. Luther Burden III from Missouri was a beast this past year, or 2 years ago rather, and then his numbers dropped off a little bit this past season in Missouri. A lot of it could be blamed on the Missouri offense this past year. I like him as a weapon. One moment, everyone. I'll let Raven pick up from here and talk about my Broncos.
No, I'm gonna do the injustice of talking about his Broncos here. He has a lot more knowledge as far as, of course, their needs. Now I know he was, definitely favoring more Luther Burden III from Missouri. I also, as well, if they are looking receiver, maybe the Ohio State kid, Emeka Egbuka, very well could be a guy they could look at here. But definitely definitely having having additions to that wide receiver crew out there could be huge moves for the Broncos. That very well could be something that they can look into, something that would seem very sensible. So we'll see what ultimately happens with the Broncos. All right, and I will wait patiently for him because we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Mm-hmm.
Moving past the Broncos, the Steelers. This pick is going to be very, very very many questions. Quarterback, running back.
I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be very interesting. I mean, we know their needs are probably on offense more than anywhere else. I don't think anybody would question that. I don't think anybody thinks anything else. I mean, let's be honest right now, we're talking about Mason Rudolph at quarterback or a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers if he chooses to sign. I am going to throw a name out there, somebody who has been jumping up the boards lately. Watch for the Steelers and their interest in Jackson Dart.
That's ironically who I was thinking about too. Jackson Dart
makes all the sense in the world. Whether you sign Aaron Rodgers or not, Jackson Dart at number 21 overall gets a year to play behind him or gets to start as a rookie, one or the other.
Definitely. And I mean, even too, them bringing back in Mason Rudolph, a seasoned quarterback in that organization, bringing him back in. Worst case scenario, if they don't sign Aaron Rodgers and Jackson Dart is immediately propulsed into that starting position, you at least have a guy there available that has been in the organization prior, who has experience with Tomlin's quarterback or Tomlin's system. So
Philosophy.
yeah, well, philosophy, system, what have you. But more than anything, getting Jackson Dart here would be the most sensible pick, whether you get Rodgers or not.
Yeah. I think so too. It would be mind blowing to me. Outside of Pittsburgh maybe trading down a couple of picks because there's not a lot of quarterback needy teams um, be after them. Maybe trading down even to 24, 25 if the Vikings, the Texans see somebody they want to move up for. Um, I don't think they'll trade down past the Rams because I think the Rams are another potential landing spot for Jackson Dart with Matthew Stafford being toward the end of his career. I I think Pittsburgh, one way or another, walks out of this first round with whoever they believe is the next best available quarterback in the draft. And keep in mind, we still have not said the name Shedeur Sanders. So there's some quarterback options out there. It could potentially be the second or third quarterback off the board. Um, I think they get whoever they believe is their quarterback of the future here.
I have to mention too. Earlier when you stepped away, I did mention Shador with the Saints. But definitely, if Shador happens to fall this far, Shador definitely could go number 21 to the Steelers as well. Okay, moving on from Schittsburg, we got the Los Angeles should be in San Diego Chargers. I mean, there's a lot to talk about: tight end, receiver, and running back needs, defensive needs as well. After losing, or no, they didn't. No, that wasn't them. That wasn't Bills, but definitely some defensive needs and some offensive needs, especially thinking about the receiver position as well.
Yeah, and I think everybody agrees that their biggest needs are probably wide receiver or potentially some type of playmaking tight end. It'll take one of those top two tight ends sliding down the board or one of these receivers we've mentioned already somehow sliding to them for them to really be able to consider spending at those positions this late in the first round. Um, Running back is another position. I know they just signed Najee Harris. I am not sold on Najee as much as everybody seems to love him. The guy averages 3 yards a carry and just doesn't seem to have that ability to break away in plays. I I think they have to go offense because that defense is good enough to keep them in games. But in a division where you have to put points on the board in order to win, giving giving Justin Herbert another weapon is probably more important than anything else.
Without a doubt, uh, definitely having more available targets for him too would definitely help out. Knowing their offensive line is as stable as it can be to keep him protected, having more weapons out there for them would be great to see.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so moving on from Los Angeles, the Green Bay Packers, far too many things. Far too many things to think about. Corner, edge, defense, very well being main needs, but as well things to look at as far as the offensive side of the ball with receiver and offensive line, especially after losing Bakhtiari.
Yeah. Um, Honestly, offensive line to me probably makes the most sense. Jordan Love needs to stay upright. These guys are another one of those teams that's so difficult to be a fan of right now because they have talent, but is it talent that's going to help them to win one of the toughest divisions in football? We don't know. They need help on the offensive line if they're going to run the ball. They need help on the offensive line if they're going to give Jordan Love time to move the ball down the field. They need weapons on the outside, and I don't dislike their receivers right now. I really don't. But in this day and age, You need three quality receivers at minimum to make defenses play you straight up. Make defenses not be able to double your top guys. Make defenses have to play more of a zone that allows you to move the ball down the field. For the Packers, instead of trying to focus on the single player, I'll just say anything other than offensive line or wide receiver in the first round, unless a top cornerback happens to slide, I just don't see it. I just don't. Um, Offensive line or wide receiver for me are their two biggest needs, even though others may not agree. Um, I would look for them to spend or find ways to bring a guy in that's going to help them to put points on the board one way or another in order to keep up with the Vikings and the Lions in this division.
Without a doubt. No, one of the many things I was looking into being that offensive line, being that of course you got you having to at least play Detroit twice a year. Especially with, unfortunately, even though he's coming off of a huge injury, he's still one of the best defensive ends in that entire division. Knowing you have to play against Detroit every year, it's very much so a very, very huge need as far as offensive tackle for them right now.
Yep.
All right, so staying within their division, Minnesota. Good old needs on that defense as well with linebacker, corner, and safety.
Yeah, the Vikings spent a lot of money in free agency to shore up that offensive line. Letting Garrett Bradbury walk was a bit of a surprise. I figured they'd get at least a 6th round pick out of him. No luck. But they upgraded across that offensive line, I think, and that offense should put points on the board as long as J.J. McCarthy does not look like a deer caught in the headlights. So they need to spend on upgrading their defense, a defense that is good. I like that they brought back Byron Murphy Jr. at corner. They could use another corner on the other side across from him. They really could spend a pick at safety, because as much as I love Harrison Smith, and I truly do, he is in season 12, 13, 14. The guy is at the end of his career. They need to find a playmaker that can fill that hole and not ask Harrison to cover guys that are 10 years younger than him.
Exactly.
So look for them to spend there.
Yeah, more with safety more than anything, especially with Harrison Smith. I mean, him getting up there in age, he's not the best guy to keep around for the long haul. Maybe see him leaving after this year or even next, with him either hanging him up or them trading him away. Very many things could happen with Minnesota this year. So moving on to Houston. Another team that has a lot of question marks, especially on that offensive line. Stroud played terrible last year. Still willed them to the playoffs, but still he played horrible last year, and a lot of it came from that offensive line.
So this is a great example of why it does sometimes suck to play in a division where every other team in your division is so bad that you don't have to be so good. The Texans, now drafting at number 25, have got to find a way to protect CJ Stroud. If he's going to have any success, especially with the fact that they do run an offensive scheme that depends on the plays down the field. If you're going to have time to throw, you need blockers. Now that said, if they can't get the best available offensive lineman, or one that they feel like is a good fit for them, give them another weapon. Give them a possession receiver. Those are the top two places that I expect them to draft in round 1, unless all of that is gone. If all of that is gone, taking another playmaker on defense, maybe you score some defensive points that way in a division that's so bad. But really, I would expect them to spend a pick on offensive line one way or another.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, honestly, there's so many different needs that they need. Definitely, I feel more definitely that offensive line should be looked into. Josh Simmons, whether he falls in the first or even falls to them late in the second, very well could be something to look into. But their offensive line needs as much help as they can get. And if Josh Simmons falls this far, I mean, five picks before before he was projected to go. But very well they could go with offensive tackle to help out with the edge rushers in other divisions, not their own division, their other divisions. So moving on, we got the other one of the other teams in the one of the other teams that is in need of some quarterback love with the Rams.
So with the Rams, it's really interesting because I've seen a lot of people suggest that their defense probably needs the most help here. That defense to me had them just a couple plays away from going to the Super Bowl. So and I thought that defense performed so well in the postseason, especially toward the end of last season. I feel like they're just starting to click. Matthew Stafford is back for at least another season. They're going to go with Matthew Stafford this season. But beyond this season, quarterback is a question mark. A lot, and I said his name before, I'll say it again, Jackson Dart. If he's available at 26, that could very well be the pick. Otherwise, I'd love to see them spend on another playmaker. They just lost Cooper Kupp. And when I say lost, they essentially let him go. They let him walk and go somewhere where he felt like he could be a playmaker. Watching him go in division to Seattle, that's going to be a fun 2 games every single season. If not a quarterback here, look for the pick to be wide receiver, unless one of those top running backs happens to slide as well. Sean McVay might very well love to have a running back that can just move the ball and not put it all on Stafford. Look for the pick to be offense, and look for the pick to be Jackson Dart if he's still there.
Without a doubt. All right. So I mean, with the Rams, I mean, there's a lot of things to question, especially them too. I mean, with the tight end as well to look into. Worst case, if you can't get one of the higher touted overall wide receivers, you at least have something to look into. I mean, who do they have out there? Tyler Higbee or something? As far as their tight end right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of tight ends that would be available around this time. I know I already mentioned Tyler Warren. I see a guy like Colston Loveland from Michigan as well being reviewed here with the Rams. A lot of tight ends that could be looked at as well as far as late round picks. Especially, not late round, late round, first round picks that could happen. But definitely with the need at tight end too, they very well could go for a guy who could be both a blocker and a receiver.
Possibly. I just don't see either of the top 2 tight ends sliding this far down. And I don't see any of the other tight ends being a first round talent that somebody's going to spend money on outside of maybe Mason Taylor coming out of LSU. I just don't see it. I think they're probably going to work on finding their quarterback of the future at this pick, and especially with that 5th year of control for the team, the team option for year 5. That's why we see a lot of quarterbacks get drafted right near the end of the first round. It's such a team-friendly way to lock up the most expensive position out there. It would not shock me to see them stay at quarterback on this pick.
Right. Okay. Final 6. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. On to Baltimore. Honestly,
what do you even say about them? Like, here's a team that again misses the Super Bowl. as potentially one of the best talents at quarterback, if you believe what everybody says. He, he's dynamic. He makes plays. He wins games, but he doesn't seem to have what it takes to win the big one. I don't even begin to know where to start, because here's a team that should have competed to go to the championship, but can't get out of the second round of the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, with the Ravens, there's so many different ways, so many different things you can think of that could help improve their team. But in reality, I mean, there's so many different ways you can think about it. Their defensive line is not one of the best defensive lines. They don't have a concreted edge rusher other than I think they have Calais Campbell now, don't they?
I believe so.
So other edge rushers very well may be able to help him when it comes to thinking about the playoffs. Very well as well. I mean, I wouldn't even think or even contemplate offensive line unless you're thinking about a guy who can help with the with the run against the run. So many different secondary options you can look into with the safety position. Their safeties weren't the best last year. So many different ways you can look into it, but more than anything, I think a second edge rusher would be able to help them out overall out there.
I would expect them to spend on best available defensive player. I think their offense is going to stay intact pretty much the way it is. Look for them to spend on defense to try and compete with the top teams who are capable of putting points up on the board.
Without a doubt. All right, so moving past the other birds, on to Detroit. A lot of questions.
Detroit is such a fun team.
They are.
Like, it's really hard to not like them, mainly because of their coach, Dan Campbell. Who doesn't love a guy who can cry? Fell short of, I think, even their own expectations last year. I thought they were the best team in the NFC. I thought that they would handle Philadelphia, and instead they got handled. And what we found out is what we've been saying for years and years and years and years, is that defense wins championships. The Lions, when they couldn't get the offense to click, didn't have the defense to stop anyone. Part of that was the injury to Aiden Hutchinson. He'll be back this year. Does he come back full steam, or does he come back not quite the same player? That's always interesting to watch. From here on out in this draft, my expectation is we had some of the best offenses in the league putting points up to get to where they got to last year. With the exception of the 32nd overall pick, I would expect these picks to be best available defensive fit based on their draft board.
Without a doubt.
Lions included. If there's an edge rusher out there they can pair with Aiden Hutchinson when he comes back, look there. If there's a cornerback that happens to slide that they fall in love with, look there. If there's a safety available that can help them over the center of the field and stop those deep routes, look there. If they don't spend on defense here, it'll be because another top talent somehow slid to them without explanation. So that would be my expectation in Detroit. Look for them to spend on defense.
Exactly, especially on that edge. I mean, Duffy pairing another guy with Aiden Hutchinson definitely should be the number one focus with Detroit. Sure, say worst case scenario, Aiden Hutchinson is injury prone. You have another edge rusher out there that you can be like, well, shoot. I mean, sure, they lost the guy on the right side of the line, but now I have to worry about this guy on the left side. If you have two different guys that you're having to worry about, there's no real game planning to do, especially in the run, unless you're going up the middle. So, definitely pairing him with another edge rusher should be a number one focus of Detroit. All right, moving on to the commies. Again, very many things that we're going to say. I agree with you 100%. A lot of these teams have the offense that can win them championships. It's just that defense that they're going to look into as far as the best available need. As far as with the commies, I mean, several different positions could be in question, especially the secondary more than anything.
See, and I disagree a little bit there. I think that their biggest hole at this point, because of what's happened in the offseason, they need a pass rusher. Their secondary wasn't bad. It wasn't the best in the NFL, but it definitely wasn't bad. And one way to make your secondary even better is to have a guy who can get to the quarterback. Now, when we're talking about the end of the first round, you're not going to find an Abdul Carter who's going to go out there and change the game completely. But you can find pieces that can add up to getting pressure on the quarterback and making your corners and your safeties look that much better. Any addition on that defense is probably going to be helpful. But if they can find an edge rusher here at number 29, I think that's probably a great fit for them, my personal opinion.
Exactly. No, yeah, definitely another. I mean, several different ways they could go, but I mean, they're, of course, to your point with the, with a defensive line, definitely could be a great addition for them too. So, many ways Washington can go. The biggest surprise from last year, I thought that they wouldn't even sniff the playoffs, but they came out of nowhere and proved everybody wrong. The biggest question is, are they going to be able to replicate that? So hopefully, with this pick, they're able to get a guy that can help them replicate the magic from last year. She wanted to make sure she had her point made too. All right, so moving on to Buffalo. A lot of questions with Buffalo. A lot of them. They just got rid of Von Miller. Just got him out of there for the long term. Got him out of there. Thank God they did. Von Miller's trash. He's horrible. Past his prime. Of course, taking a shot at the Broncos, but Von Miller's terrible. Anywho, a lot of question marks with the Bills. I mean, not a whole lot of huge additions made. Very, very many things that they could think about next year. Very many.
So for me, looking at the Bills, I mean, again, one more time, couldn't solve the riddle of the Kansas City Chiefs. Excuse me for one moment. Yes. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
So for me, again, this close every year to being able to take out the Chiefs and go on to their Super Bowl. Josh Allen is quickly becoming the Jim Kelly who couldn't get to the Super Bowl, but got to the AFC Championship game over and over and over. I don't think their offense is missing much. I don't think that you need a whole lot on offense to make Josh Allen look good, to get you to the same promised land that you've almost gotten to every single time, or at least within a game of it. I expect them to spend here on defense. I expect them to try and find a playmaker that's going to help to solve the Patrick Mahomes riddle. I mean, let's not forget Josh Allen threw a pass as he was falling down that if his receiver would have just held on to, they had that first down and they were right there. They were right there. I don't think they need to spend on offense. I think they probably need defensive backs to help to cover, those top receivers that they're going to face when they get to the playoffs. They brought in a pass rusher, Joey Bosa, who is essentially taking the spot of Von Miller when it comes to being just an edge rusher, a pass rusher. He's not going to play every down. He's going to be able to stay healthier. They probably need the most help in the secondary. So whoever is tops on their board at corner, that would be my expectation. And if not, probably at safety. So look to see who slides here. Look to see who the top available is in the secondary, and that will most likely be their pick.
Definitely agree with you. 100% secondary should be their number one concern right now. Damar Hamlin. A lot of people love him. Damar Hamlin's a great guy, but as far as a secondary guy to think about, as far as the guy to help with the defensive side of the ball, maybe looking into another corner next year would help them out tremendously, but especially after losing Rasul Douglas. After losing him, you gotta find another replacement for him. It's no question in my mind. Yep. Is it my turn yet? Go ahead, Patrick.
Settle down, Kermit.
What do you got to say, Patrick? I think you're both wrong. Why do you say that? Well, I've been talking with Coach Reed, smacking him a little bit. I mean, talking to him a bit. And let's just say that I've spoken to Mr. Ditka about his time with the Saints. I think you know where I'm going with this. We're trading for the number 1 overall pick for our entire draft so we can go and get... Hold on, let me check my notes here. We're getting Travis Hunter. Are you high? Maybe. Go to bed. Okay. Anyway, being serious about this. I was serious. Get out of here. Anywho, getting serious now about the Chiefs. I mean, their defense was the thing that helped them out all last year. People saying that their defense is something that's necessarily needed right now, needed to be reviewed right now. They are gravely mistaken. Their offense last year was horrible, especially at the wide receiver position. I see them going receiver this year if they don't pick up an actual good receiver this offseason. But definitely going receiver could be something the Chiefs could look at here, if not trading up higher.
So the Chiefs, I don't think, are going to trade up. First of all, if you're looking to trade up, you're typically looking to move up, no more than 8 positions because of the associated cost. And if you're one of those playoff teams that have chased the Chiefs year in and year out, you're probably not going to do anything that's going to give them another weapon that you have to worry about. I really think that the Chiefs either A, have to find another wide receiver weapon, and that'll depend on who's available at this point, or B, they've got to find a way to get to the quarterback.
Exactly.
They showed flashes last year. Chris Jones showed flashes last year of being able to pressure the quarterback. George Karlaftis showed flashes. I am not convinced that defense is at fault for what happened in the Super Bowl. I don't think that's realistic. I think if anything, that defense kept them in the game in plain and simple, because that offense couldn't do a thing. My personal guess is that the Chiefs address either defensive line or offensive line in this draft, and they do it with whoever happens to be best available here at the end of the first round.
Exactly.
Defensive line, I think, makes more sense to me. Offensive line, they couldn't block at all last year. Or if one of those top tight ends somehow makes it to number 31, a replacement for Travis Kelce might be in order. So look for them to address either offensive or defensive line. Look for them to potentially address tight end if one of the top guys is there. Otherwise, one more weapon at wide receiver isn't necessarily going to make or break this team, in my opinion. That could be a reach.
Definitely agree, and hopefully this will be this next year will be the year that Swifties finally say, "I don't care about football anymore" because Taylor and Travis broke up. But anyway, down to the final decision, final pick, number 32, Super Bowl Super Bowl winning Eagles. Congratulations to the Eagles. Will always be had. A lot of guys they lost this last year, especially with Darius Slay being let go. Very well could be something they could look at this year, but a lot of other questions with the Eagles too.
I think losing Josh Sweat is probably the most significant of the people who are gone now. That defense, got henpicked a little bit during free agency. They seem to find guys that can be part of a system and not necessarily be the guy. And so draft and replace is probably look for them to draft along that defensive line to try and fill the void that they now have with Josh Sweat being gone to Arizona. And if not there, look for them to draft some depth a lot within that defense. That offense is scary. And until they ban the tush push, or the hurts, until they ban that, this offense is just going to keep moving the football and moving it down the field. Saquon Barkley, hey, kudos, sir. Once again, should have been MVP. Nothing more impressive last year for me than what happened with him. Look for the Eagles just to address that defense and try to keep that offense on track.
Exactly. No, definitely very many agreements there. I mean, very well could go offensive line here to help. Look at help. Linebacker as well, definitely should be a number one thing they should look into, especially after losing losing Sweat. But again, it's just more discussing about what could happen. So, that being said, we've been going for a little over 2 hours now. Yep, 2 hours and 7 minutes and 42 seconds to be exact.
Oh.
So, I think the other topic you and I were going to discuss, I think we hold that off until next episode. Next episode, everyone, we will be going over some topics regarding regarding some of the guys they are looking into for Hall of Fame. A lot of Hall of Famers are being looked at as far as first ballot guys. That'll definitely be very exciting. So definitely stay tuned for that. But we luckily have come to the end of the topics we have been wanting to discuss. So unfortunately, that means we have come to the end of the stream, end of the YouTube video. I want to thank everybody who came out, watched. Everybody who is going to be watching this on YouTube, I appreciate y'all for any support you have, any support you give us. Of course, anything you want to see, any other suggestions as far as topics, definitely leave comments. We appreciate anything. But yeah, come to the end. I hope everybody enjoyed. Hope you have a great rest of your Saturday, and hope you enjoy the wonderful weekend we have, and hopefully enjoy some baseball too.
Batter up.
Alrighty.
Thanks all.
All right, catch y'all later. Do late.